Hello there, Matthew J. Elliott here, taking time out from doing British things like correcting people's grammar and, well, that's it really, to congratulate you, the listener, for selecting the True Blue Riffcast. Yes, you could have picked any one of the thousands of RiffTrax themed podcasts on the web, but your perspicacity led you to seek out the number one RiffTrax podcast, and for that, you should be commended. Now, I'm going to turn you over to your hosts, Dave and Jeremy, and I shall board a flight back to England without even so much as the boxed lunch I'd been promised.
Thanks, Matthew J. Elliott.
What? Matthew J. Elliott? Of
Matthew J.
RiffTrax
Elliott.
Presents?
Yes, one half of BritTrax.
I mean, he recorded something for our podcast, the number one RiffTrax podcast in the world, and we didn't even give him a complimentary lunch? Whose decision was that? I think it was yours, because I would never do that.
That was mine, 100%.
I would never do that to Matthew J. Elliott. Thank you, Matt.
Yes. This is the True Blue Riffcast, of course, the number one RiffTrax podcast in the world. I am Jeremy, and I am fond of the new fudge brownie M&Ms, and with me, as always, is...
Hey, it's me. I'm Dave. Happy Halloween, and happy election, and welcome to hell. You're welcome, America. We're doing this again.
Oh man, but enough of that. Enough of that. We got other crap fests to talk about, like Jacko
and Werewolf in a Girls' Dormitory by Matthew J. Elliott and Ian Potter.
Yes, they're not the crappy part of it. Don't worry.
No, they're definitely not. They're most definitely what makes it tolerable.
Yes. But before either of those, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian.
That's The Mandalorian. It's the True Blue Mandocast right here on the True Blue Riffcast. We will be doing this.
Yes.
For every new episode of The Mandalorian.
Just like we did last year.
Yep. What was this one called?
The Marshal.
Oh, by the way, spoilers for The Mandalorian Season 2. So, Jeremy, you went back and you watched Mandalorian Season 1.
Yes, sir. I sure did.
So tell us about that.
The Mandalorian is about a Mandalorian.
A Boba Fett. A Boba Fett, basically. Yes.
Well, a Boba Fett, yes. It's about a Boba Fett. And this one's name is not Boba Fett, though. It's Din Djarin, which you don't find out until the end of Season 1. But he is tasked by Werner Herzog to go and find somebody, this 50-year-old, and he finds it, and it's Baby Yoda.
It's Baby Yoda. This whole thing is basically a Boba Fett Yoda team-up, is what this whole series is.
Yes. The Boba Fett Yoda team-up that we always dreamed we would get someday.
Where Yoda's a baby.
And Boba Fett is just silver.
Yeah.
And doesn't have any rockets in his jetpack. He steals Baby Yoda back from Werner Herzog, and he goes on all these wacky adventures, and he crushes a demon guy in a door. Then he gets cornered by Moff Gideon, who is the person who destroyed Mandalore.
And then went and formed a drug empire in the form of a chicken fast food restaurant. Oh, no, wait, that's the wrong series.
Wrong show, Dave.
Oh, no. I made a mistake. We're going to have to ditch this episode and record all over again.
Oh, no. But, yeah, so Mandalorian Season 2 picks up with Mando and Baby Yoda flying through the galaxy. They're trying to find the rest of the Yodas because he needs to deliver him back to his own kind. And he goes to this a fight between two of the pig monsters from Jabba's palace, and he gets ambushed. And of course, he takes everybody out. And he's looking for information on where other Mandalorians might be. And this guy that he goes to meet there supposedly has that information. And he sends him to Tatooine because there's been sightings of a Mandalorian on Tatooine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
What? Huh?
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 And Mando does something pretty cold
Yeah,
by
he leaves
basically
up that
leaving the guy to be
Cyclops
murdered
guy.
by all these creatures.
Yeah, that was pretty cold. But
Yeah.
hey, you know what? I believe there is a RiffTrax connection to that guy that Mando leaves tied up, who we were just talking about there, Jeremy.
Oh, really?
The man who plays the voice of Gor Koresh, the Cyclops man, who the Mandalorian leaves hanging upside down to get murdered, is none other than John Leguizamo.
Oh!
John Leguizamo, of course. Daisy! Luigi! Yes, but even before, I mean, John Leguizamo's been in RiffTrax before. He, of course, was in The Happening.
Yep.
I think that might be the only. I think that might be the only two appearances of John Leguizamo.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. So there's that. Daisy, Luigi, and so on. Anyway, continue with your recap of the Marshal.
Din Djarin goes back to Tatooine, where we run into Dave's favorite character,
God,
played by Amy Sedaris.
Dude, she's the worst. She's the worst. She was the worst part of season 1 when they went back to Tatooine. I was like, well, at least they're not going back to Mos Eisley. We don't have to deal with Amy. Oh no, there they are, right off the bat. She's the worst actress. I know, like I have a very close friend who loved Amy Sedaris in the worst episode of season 1, the worst actress in season 1. I can't stress this enough how much I hate her character in this.
He gets information from her about Mos Pelgo, which was a mining colony, and he goes there. And he meets the town's marshal, Cobb Vanth, who's wearing Boba Fett's armor.
And he does not wear it well. Like at all.
He looks like a kid whose mom made him put on extra layers underneath his Boba Fett costume for trick-or-treating.
It looks like he's LARPing, basically. But
I made it myself.
But anyway, so the big reveal that this guy has Boba Fett's armor. So for a good part of the episode, we know that at least Boba Fett's armor made it out of the Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi.
Yes. And there is actually a mention of the Sarlaccs a little bit later in the episode. They're trying to kill a crate dragon, which is basically it's a big tremor. But they find where its den is, and oh hey, it's an abandoned Sarlacc pit. And they're like, wait a second, I've never seen an abandoned Sarlacc pit. And they're just like, yeah, it's abandoned if you eat the Sarlacc.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly abandoned as it is the person who lived in it got murdered.
Yeah. So they team up with the Tusken Raiders and the people of the village, who, of course, don't want to team up with the Tusken Raiders because they raid their village for supplies.
Well, that's not, I mean, come on. Give them a little bit of a break.
They end up being convinced by Din and Cobb. Mm-hmm. They plant some explosives to try and get it like over the explosives and blow it up, and that doesn't work. So Mando grabs a bantha that has a bunch of explosives strapped to it and gets eaten.
Yeah.
And then he shocks his way out.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then blows up the bantha, and yeah, they killed the thing. And why did the Tusken Raiders want it, Dave?
Okay, do you remember last season the episode with the Jawas where the Mandalorian had to go find an egg and give it to the Jawas? They're like, oh great, we have this egg, and they just wanted to like eat it. This is kind of the same thing where they bring out like this crystal orb and be like, hey, we have this crystal orb. I don't know why the Sand People wanted this thing, but they made a big deal of being like, "Oh yeah, we have it," right? But do you know? It also it kind of reminds me of. Do you remember at the end of the Phantom Menace where they have that big Jar Jar Binks parade?
Yes.
And they Natalie Portman gave Boss Nass this thing. Maybe it kind of looks like that a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of similar.
Yeah, but it. Oh, and also Boba Fett's alive.
Yeah, the very last shot you get is after the Marshal relinquishes the armor to Mando for helping him defeat the dragon, the crate dragon. And Mando's driving off across the desert. We see a figure, and he turns around, and it's Boba Fett.
It's the actor who played Jango Fett. And I kind of I was like, is that Boba Fett? And he does have like the big long staff that he had in the Star Wars Holiday Special. So I was like, maybe. I'll have to go see if that's the same actor who played Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. And it was, so, But the thing is, it's kind of weird because you don't automatically know, like if you're not a big prequels fan, you're not going to automatically know that was the actor that played Jango Fett. You're going to have to go back and check like I did. So could have been handled better, but but Boba Fett's alive. So good for him, which like is something that Star Wars fans have all kind of believed anyway. Oh, one of the things I just remembered something kind of funny. To get Cobb Vanth out of the way, Mando just kind of like smacks the Boba Fett rocket, and it just kind of like malfunctions the way it does in Return of the Jedi. And it's like, bah! Right? So like that was just like
he just kind of goes flying off.
Yeah, and it's just like that same kind of like flail.
The other little interesting thing that we got to see in this episode was the rocket on the jetpack being fired twice.
Yeah, the rocket firing Boba Fett. That's like a very famous function of. I mean, we didn't see him use it in Star Wars Holiday Special. We didn't get to see him use it in either Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, and everyone like, I wonder what that's about. And also famously, the famous Star Wars toy, the collectible. You know what I'm talking about? Rocket firing Boba Fett is that never made it like the original Boba Fett action figure is originally supposed to have a functioning rocket firing mechanism. But the legend goes is that some people had safety concerns that kids could choke on it, that it was a choking hazard. So it never made it to market. Yep. So
that was a big thing around that time because a lot of the toys used to have these little spring-loaded rockets that would shoot out. Transformers had them and G.I. Joe had them. And then they stopped doing that because they're like, oh, kids are dumb and they're going to try and eat these and die. So we got to make it so they don't do that anymore.
I really don't think kids choke to death on stuff like that. I think it's just like people thinking that they might. Hot take. I know you don't usually get hot takes from me. I'm usually pretty reserved in what I think. But, hot take. Anyway. So what'd you think of the Marshal?
I thought it was a pretty solid start to season 2.
I was kind of surprised that we didn't get a ton of Baby Yoda cuteness in this one, seeing that Baby Yoda is kind of like the driving force of the Mandalorian. In fact, I posed this question on Facebook about a week ago, is that how soon, notably how Star Wars fans, how much Star Wars fans hate Star Wars. Being how everyone,
especially anything cutesy in Star Wars.
Yeah. meaning how everyone started off loving the sequel trilogy, and by the end, they all hated it. And we won't really get into that. But I was like, how soon until people turn on Baby Yoda? And I was like, it might be with this episode if they overdo the cuteness thing. But they really only had like one instance of big Baby Yoda cuteness, and it was at the very beginning. It was with John Leguizamo. Do you know the shot I'm talking about?
Yeah, when he saw that Din was arming the little rockets in his wrist, and he quick closed. Yeah,
he closed his cradle thing. Yeah. So, that was it, and that was great. But they didn't really use him for the rest of the episode. They go to Amy Sedaris and be like, hey, do you want to watch my kid? And she says no, and I'm like, good. People think Rose is...
He climbs into a spittoon.
Yeah, but, I mean... that
was more gross
it's than not cute. It's not as good as, hitting the button on the pram and being like, oh, I'm out, But let me ask you this. How soon until Star Wars fans start to hate The Mandalorian because of Baby Yoda? Because I think it's probably going to happen eventually.
Halfway through this season.
Halfway through the season, you think?
Yep.
Do you think this thing gets Urkeled? And by that I mean is that, ladies and gentlemen, there used to be this...
I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay. There was this show on ABC, on TGIF, the TGIF lineup called Family Matters. And it was supposed to be about...
the Winslows.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the name. The Die Hard, we'll call him. It's supposed to be the cop from Die Hard moves to Chicago, and to be like, I'm going to have a wife and a family. I'm going to marry some minor character from Cousin Balky, and it's going to be a show. It's be like a blue collar Cosby show, like they said on Key and Peele. And what had happened is that they created this character named Steve Urkel, who has a crush on Laura, the daughter.
One of the daughters.
One of the daughters got written out. Family Matters had a daughter, in season 2 or 3. They had a younger daughter, but they just wrote her out and never brought her up again. And I guess in later seasons, they were like, "Oh, we've never had another daughter."
It was the what was it? Who was the other character in Happy Days that they did that to?
The
same thing. He went upstairs.
The older brother, he went upstairs and never came back after season 1. But anyway, Steve Urkel basically came and took over the show and became this huge pop culture thing. Urkel was just it in American pop culture in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I mean, there were Urkel.
He ended up becoming the main character of the show.
Yes. So I think it's not exactly the same in the show itself, because Baby Yoda was there from the show's inception and was written into the DNA of the show. But what I think where the Urkel factor comes in with Baby Yoda, listen to me. These are sentences that I'm saying. Where the Urkel factor comes in to the Baby Yoda show is that at Walmart there are Baby Yoda T-shirts the way that there were Urkel T-shirts. And Urkel everything.
And there's Baby Yoda cereal.
Yeah.
And there's Baby Yoda toys and Baby Yoda everything.
So
it's everywhere.
It's all about Baby Yoda. And I'll admit, I mean, we talked about this on the podcast last year, Jeremy, remember? When at the end of the first episode and the Taika Waititi bot got killed, we were like, the last thing I was expecting to come out of that thing was going to be a Baby Yoda. And I was just like, that's brilliant. And then just Baby Yoda fever took over America.
Is that like Pac-Man fever?
Yeah, it's like Pac-Man fever. So Baby Yoda is just was like it. They were referencing Baby Yoda at the Golden Globes. But anyway, so like that's kind of where the Urkel factor comes in, where this show is what the driving force to bring people behind it is not so much Boba Fett, where a Boba Fett, like the legacy of Boba Fett is, but rather it's about the cute Baby Yoda man.
Oh man.
So, and I think people are going to I think Star Wars fans are going to be like, oh, I'm tired of this.
Yeah, they've never taken kindly to cute characters, or characters that were intended to be cute, to pull in, children and whatnot, like the Ewoks.
Like the Ewoks. I never understood that. I never understood the hatred for the Ewoks. But then again, I was like 3 years old when that movie came out.
Yeah. The Ewoks are vicious little bastards.
Yeah, they are. And they were going to kill and eat Han Solo and Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
They were going to murder
That's not actually that cutesy, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, they were just they're bloodthirsty little bastards.
So that's our review of Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1.
Yeah. Probably take out half of the True Blue Riffcast.
Well, how about we start talking about some RiffTrax now,
let's
Dave?
do that. What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Jacko or do you want to talk about Werewolf?
Let's talk about Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
RiffTrax Presents from Matthew J. Elliott and Ian Potter.
Thank you so much, you again, Matthew, for your great intro. We love you. You know that.
Yes. This movie is weird, but not like in like a Psychotronic Man weird. It's something about it is just off the whole time. And I know it stems from the weird theme song that they put on the American version of this movie. Like it's this like go-go music, like, we're going to have a fun beach party.
Yeah, it's very much like there was another RiffTrax that was released in the year 2011, almost a decade ago now, called The Devil's Hand, where it starts off like almost the exact same way, where you have like this beach music thing, and the whole thing is about satanic sacrifice and the satanic voodoo cult. And it starts off with just like, like, okay, look, excuse me, but this is not Zombie, aka I Eat Your Skin. This is not a happy romp comedy. Okay, this is Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
Yeah. So this movie starts out with our main character. He's a disgraced doctor.
Is he the main character?
I think he's supposed to be the main character.
See, I don't know.
He's at least one of the main characters.
I don't even know his name. Do you remember his name?
Dr. Alcott.
Really? Okay. Like any really black and white movie that Matthew J. and Ian do, where I can't remember, where they have like this just generic bland man. I just go back to King of Kong Island, where they made this great joke about calling him like the hero's name is Bert. So I'm just going to call that guy Bert. He's the Bert of Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory.
It starts with him showing up at this reformatory. Okay, we got to get this out of the way.
God.
This is not a girl's dormitory. Okay, you hear girls' dormitory and you're like,
you think college
girls. No, this is a reform school for troubled girls. They're supposed to be teenagers, but they're like in their late 20s.
Yeah. Oh, at the very earliest, all these girls are at least 29. And I even think that's like, as I get a little bit older, to me, people in their 20s look like teenagers. So to me, like these women are like in their 30s,
Yeah. Anyway, one of the girls sneaks out and she's like having an affair with one of the teachers.
Which is super weird.
And she gets murdered. And all we see is like a furry hand and like an eyeball.
Yeah, it's not even a werewolf.
Like
it's just
from
a
this
guy
person that attacks her.
It's just a dude running without his costume on. It's like, bro, you forgot your werewolf costume here at Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory. That is addressed by Matthew and Ian when they're they're outside the girls' dormitory. This is Werewolf in a girls' dormitory. So slow your roll.
Yeah. But then it is also kind of, I guess, addressed by the film itself, because this is more about the classic version of a lycanthrope than it is a werewolf, where it's just a guy who gets a little fuzzy and instead of actually like mutating completely.
Don't give this movie any credit. It doesn't deserve it. What are you doing? You're going to encourage other movies that this kind of thing is okay. It's not okay. This is not normal.
So this movie turns out to be more of a whodunit murder mystery than an actual like horror movie about a werewolf killing people. And it's really weird because it's an Italian film.
Oh, what a surprise. What a shock. This came from Italy.
Made for German audiences, which is why most of the people have German surnames. And then dubbed into English.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right. Okay. I have a theory about this, if you'll indulge me.
Of course.
In previous episodes, we've talked about this phenomenon that we have recently named. I think it has to have been this year where we maybe in the last few months where we gave a name.
Yeah, it was one of the more recent episodes
where we gave a name to this phenomenon, and we call it the ghost house effect. Now, the ghost house effect is where you take a script that's written in English, and you cast, for the most part, American actors. Maybe throw in a foreign girlfriend in there for spice, like they do in Ghost House. I'm just thinking of Ghost House because I happen to love
Ghost House is great.
Love Ghost House. So it's an English script, English speaking actors, and it's shot in America, but it's edited and dubbed in such a way to where it looks like it was written and performed in a foreign language and dubbed into English. Okay? So that's the Ghost House effect. Now, how it affects this particular movie is that the dub on this movie is extremely bad. Like, in the extreme. Like, I know we've
it is terrible.
I know, I'm pretty sure we've said this is the worst dub I've ever seen on RiffTrax. I don't know how anything can beat how bad this dub is. Because
as of now, this is the worst dub that they've had on RiffTrax. I mean, like,
forget when I say this is the worst dub we've ever seen. This is 10 times worse than, I mean, I'm being dead serious. 10 times worse than any other dub we've seen before. Even in like Attack of the Super Monsters. Okay, it beats that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
As far as dubs go.
Woo!
Because
now that's a hot take.
You can hear Matthew and Ian reacting to the dub, and all they're doing is just like laughing or groaning at the dub because it's so it's
terrible.
Terrible. Because what they're saying doesn't match what they're saying at all, except for one guy, the werewolf, the guy who ends up being the werewolf. I call him the headmaster, but they call him something different in the movie.
He's the director.
Okay, yeah, the director of the reformatory of all these women in their 30s.
Yes,
his lines dub up perfectly. Like, and his lip movements are in perfect English. Right? It's just like it matches up to it. The dub matches up to him perfectly, but no one else. On everyone else, it's atrocious. Jeremy and I talked about this. I'm not saying that we recorded a previous conversation about this riff earlier, and we're having to talk about it again because somebody's microphone was messed up. It wasn't mine at all. But Jeremy and I have recently spoken about this. Welcome back from the edit again. Jeremy and I have talked about it, and we theorized, or I had a theory within a theory about this actor maybe having some sway with the studio being no, I'm not re-recording any of my lines. I think that there was probably a massive rewrite on Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory. To the fact that it's just well, this isn't working. We can't reshoot everything, but we can rewrite all the dialogue. But this one guy, either all his lines or a lot of his lines matched the new story perfectly, or they just couldn't get the actor again, but they could just dub him over. I don't know, dude. It makes no sense.
He was the most famous actor out of anybody in this movie. I mean,
that's
looking
hard.
through his credits, he's got let's see, 132 acting credits.
And are some of them RiffTrax?
Yes, he was also in Missile X, the neutron bomb incident.
Oh, that's right. We talked about this as well. I should point out, because I know many of our listeners are also familiar with Incognito Cinema Warriors XP. This movie was featured, I believe, as an iRiff. I'll have to double check my notes on that one. But now Matthew and Ian have done it, so you can do both. Why not?
Get different takes on the same thing.
Yeah,
I believe we had a very in-depth discussion about that with Mary Jo Peele a little while back.
Did we?
About different takes on the same film.
Right. That is correct. Yes. I remember most about that conversation with Mary Jo Peele is that you and her ganging up on me. You bastards.
He's just kidding. He loves you, Mary Jo.
I do. I love you. Oh, wait.
Oh, man.
No. Oh, God. Anyway.
Now we're going to talk about the latest from RiffTrax, the last theatrically broadcast RiffTrax, actually. Jack O.
Too bad neither one of us saw it.
But we didn't have to wait very long. It was only a week and a half, and then we got it on VOD. And I am so glad we got this movie on VOD because, oh my God, it is bad.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning.
So Jacko starts off with this little kid. This creepy middle-aged man telling him the story. No.
It's not Psychotronic.
No, way creepier.
I don't know if that's possible.
And he's telling the kid the story of Pumpkin Jack. And he gives him this nursery rhyme. Mr. Jack will break your back, cut off your head with a whack, whack, whack. The Pumpkin Man will steal your soul, snap it up and swallow it whole. Then just as quick before you die, the Pumpkin Man will steal your eyes.
That's a terrible rhyme.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, there's a story behind that nursery rhyme, kid. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Yeah, for some reason the kid's like, oh yeah, I do want to hear it. And then we get the backstory of who Jacko is.
A talking cat?
There was a wizard, and the people in the village killed the wizard. But before that, he summoned the pumpkin-headed demon, Mr. Jack, to get revenge on the people who killed him. And but he couldn't kill anybody because the main character's ancestor took him down.
What?
And yeah, they buried him and they put a cross over the grave, and that's what stopped him from coming back. and killing people. And so, of course, some teenagers knock the cross down, and they wake up Mr. Jack, and he starts trying to kill the people again. And yeah, this movie, okay, the original cut, there is boobage in this film, because of course there is. It's a low budget slasher flick from the early 90s. You know, so it's got to have boobs in it. They did remove those for the riff.
Like
and in doing so...
Jack Frost, right? Didn't it also
yes,
do that?
just like a Jack Frost. Yes, another Jack. And in doing so, they ended up turning this into the most kid-friendly R-rated horror film ever.
Tell us about the kills.
Okay, so Mr. Jack has a big scythe, and he kills people with it. He cuts the throat of a few people, and it's very reminiscent of the throat cutting in another riff, The Last Slumber Party, meaning that it looks terrible and fake as all get out.
Sorry, I just got very happy thinking about The Last Slumber Party.
As everyone should. But anyway, you know, turns out the kid's the only one who can stop it because he's the fifth in the line. So it's really dumb. And it's really bad. It's got a terrible script, bad acting, everything that you want in a riff. But this movie also has John Carradine.
Really?
And
wait,
Cameron
John Carradine
Mitchell
is in this movie?
Yeah. And Cameron Mitchell.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like they're both of their final movies before they died. How'd you like that as your last ever acting credit, Jacko?
Jacko.
But this movie gives a special connection to Dave and I.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
And the fact that the producer of this film is one Fred Olen Ray.
Oh, who's that?
He directs a lot of movies. He used to direct a lot of sleazy movies, and then he kind of transitioned into family films, and now he does a lot of stuff for Hallmark Channel.
Oh, no.
And he made a movie that has a character in it by the name of John Schemer.
No! Wait. No!
He is the director of Dinosaur Island, Dave.
Are you kidding me?
No. I knew that name looked familiar, so I dug around in his credits, and yeah, Dinosaur Island.
Dinosaur, okay. We need to explain what Dinosaur Island is. Dinosaur Island, I would say probably about 2017 or thereabouts, right? Was
somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Jeremy and I started getting together on Messenger, and we're like, "Hey, look at this weird movie I just found." Like that's how Jeremy and I kind of started to be real good friends, and we would watch these movies together on YouTube. And many times we would like sync up, right? I think this was one of those times where Dinosaur Island. I found this. It's about these army soldiers, but they don't act like they're like the misfits, right? We're the misfits of the army. And they get stranded somehow. It's been a long time, but they somehow get stranded on this island that's called Dinosaur Island. But it's really like this babe cult where like the whole point of it is boobs, right? I mean that's really is the whole point of Dinosaur Island. And there's this one guy named Schemer who was just like he would be repulsive to the volleyball players in Spiker. That's how repulsive this Schemer guy is. Like, he's just like the most awful. Ugh, like, you would not want to be around this guy. And like you
No.
could tell. I mean, we kind of were talking to each other. It's like, I don't think this actor is acting. I think this is probably the way that this actor behaves in real life. It'd be like I think he was saying things like, well, what a coinky dink, or just like some generic that's like an insult. Like, he would just use like, he's really bad.
It was so terrible.
It's bad. I mean, like, I wish there's some like, oh no, I know what it was. He said something or akin to, "Hey, I resemble that remark," and you're just like, oh god, that was in a movie. But anyway, the whole point of it's kind of like Frankenstein's Island, where it's they find a faraway land of leopard skin clad girls but in this movie they actually take it off and get their tits out, right? And they all like get deflowered by these soldiers, and there's one scene in it where I think they're in a hot tub or a hot spring or something, and one of the leopard skin girls has one of the dinosaur girls has like read like Cosmo or something, and there'd be like, you know how like in the 90s like Cosmo would have like on the cover like turn to page 34 to know how to really pleasure your man or some garbage, right? So she read one of these magazines. I don't know why they had a women's magazine with them, but whatever. So anyway, so he and like one of the dorkiest ones on there, and the girl's like, I read page 34. Welcome back from the edit, everybody.
Teach me page 34.
Yes. She obviously is performing a sexual activity. Figure it out. And while this is going on, the dork is just like moaning, page 34, page 34, and like ecstasy. It's like
so bad.
It's so bad. It's
awful. One of the most heinous things I've ever seen.
RiffTrax, do not do this. Do not riff Dinosaur Island. I'm pretty sure that they are aware of its existence, because it's like one of those. It's on one of those lists of like famously bad movies. But I would dare say that Dinosaur Island is akin to The Amazing Bulk. And the fact that, like, I don't want RiffTrax to do it. You know?
Yeah.
I don't. It's that bad.
Yeah, I gotta say, Jacko is better.
Jacko is better than Dinosaur Island?
Yes, Jacko is definitely better than Dinosaur Island. It's still terrible, and...
But so what you're saying is Schemer produced this thing.
No. Oh, God, no. Or the guy who directed it was the producer of Jacko.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Dinosaur Island. Yeah, well, you got me. You got me going off on a big, long tangent.
I knew you were going to enjoy that little tidbit, Dave.
About this horrible... it might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen, Dinosaur Island. Don't check it out. Do not watch Dinosaur Island.
It's painful to watch, guys. Yeah. It's deep hurting. It's real deep hurting.
But do watch Jacko at RiffTrax.com.
The guys, this should set the scene, set the tone for this whole riff. Right away, Mike is already completely frustrated with the movie. Within the first 2 minutes of the film, Mike is already done.
Isn't there? There's that reminds me of another RiffTrax where there's a character named Malachi in a riff called Prisoners of the Lost Universe, circa 2012, I believe. It's either 2011 or 2012. I want to say 2012. where Malachi comes on, and he's just like this repulsive little dude with a with a goatee, who ends up being in the actor doesn't reprise the role, but he shows up in, I think, either there were two fantasy riffs in 2014. I want to say it was Hawk the Slayer and another one.
Sword and the Sorcerer.
Yeah, Sword and the Sorcerer. He's in one of those as well. But Kevin, as soon as Malachi comes on screen, Kevin goes, "Oh, for hell's sake," or like they bleep it out. "Oh, for bleep's sake."
Yeah,
it's like
it's
guys,
Hawk the Slayer.
Yeah. Oh, it is Hawk the Slayer. Okay. He's like, Guys, this guy's been on screen for 0.85 seconds, and I already hate him with the heat of 1,000 suns. I've got nowhere to go. Is that kind of like what Mike is like?
Yes, he's already just had it with this kid.
That's funny.
And they're like, calm down. We still have a lot of movie to get through. It's only been the first couple of minutes.
So if we could go back in time and be like, okay, look, 2020. If you think in January you have it bad, you got a lot of year to get through.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's the same kind of feeling like, oh God, here we go. It's already starting on a high note.
Would you say that it's Riff of the Year material? Would you say, would you put this on the same level as, say, Suburban Sasquatch or Lichen Colony?
I'd say it's slightly... The movie itself is slightly better than either of those, so that kind of puts the riff itself at a little bit of a lower level for me. It's pretty good. Like, I can see this being a classic for years to come. Like, people are going to watch this one yearly around Halloween.
Yeah, like a solid Halloween entry, like Rock and Roll Nightmare.
Yes, it belongs with Rock and Roll Nightmare for sure.
I will accept that. I will accept that answer. It is acceptable. You are acceptable in this episode of the True Blue Riff Mandocast.
And if you like the True Blue Riff Mandocast, you can head on over to patreon.com/trueblueriffcast, and you can support us for just a couple dollars a month, and you'll get access to wonderful little bloopers and ringtones like the one from this episode that I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to go and find out. It was very good and off the cuff from Dave, and
like always, you're welcome
to enjoy it. But also, we post about what's coming up. Our intro from Matthew J. Elliott that we got was posted first to our patrons. We do mini-sodes, short reviews of RiffTrax shorts, and those get posted first for the patrons. They get them a couple days earlier than the rest of everybody else. Patreon.com/trueblueriffcast. And I am Jeremy. You can find me at pbandawesome.com. You can send me emails, jeremy@trueblueriffcast. You can find me on Twitter at pbandawesome. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter at tbriffcast.
And I'm Dave, a.k.a. Sugar Ray Dodge. Check me out on the web at sugarraydodge.com. Send me emails at dave@trueblueriffcast.com.
And we will see you guys next time right here on the True Blue Riffcast.
Rock till you die. Thank you, Matthew.
Rock till you die.